Welcome to the Post Shift Podcast, your raw look at the hospitality industry, brought to you by SHC. What is happening, Post Shifters? Welcome back to another episode of the Post Shift Podcast. Of course, I'm your host, Shawn Soole. As always, I'm excited to be chatting with like.a.ble Cocktails herself today, Kaitlyn Stewart. We're going to talk a little bit about world class, a lot about TikTok and social media and how that has changed the bartending game over the last little bit. And we'll talk possibly about her brand new book that's coming out next year. So I'm just clicking some buttons and there we go. Well, good morning. Welcome, Kaitlyn. How are you?
Hey, I'm great, buddy. How are you?
Oh, good. Living the dream.
Living that West Coast, wet coast dream.
Oh my God, it's been horrible lately. Luckily enough, I spent a small fortune on my car to get all my updates done because she is 60 years old. And
It's gotta be done.
that invoice was a little bit painful to pay, but now I can drive her in the rain. So it's a win-win.
Perfect.
So you're pretty well known on the social media stage, but let's give everybody your origin story. How'd you get started in bartending?
Ooh, I mean, it's kind of like one of those tale as old as time situations. I started in like bars and restaurants as like just kind of like a way to pay for university. You know, it was like go to school by day and work in restaurants by night. And my family was always in hospitality. Like my dad and my mom both worked in restaurants. They met in a restaurant and ran them for like the majority of my life. So it was kind of one of those like, hey, natural progressions. And then all of a sudden I was like, oh, you can actually like do this as a job. Like this isn't just like a segue thing. And then at the time I was living in Toronto and I came back to Vancouver and I started working with some like really amazing people, like Vancouver legends, and just stuck with it. And I owe it all to Justin Taylor. He was like kind of that first mentor that showed me the world of, just imagination with cocktails and, seeing where you could take it. And he shoved me into my first bartending competition. So it's all his fault, really.
And speaking about bartending competitions, like we've talked about, I don't want to rehash so I can link up to the interview we did a couple of years ago. I looked it up, actually. It was like 2021. So it was like 3.5 years ago that we chatted. And then World Class came around in 2017 and you obviously killed that. Your story when it comes to World Class, though, is a little bit different to a lot of other people. Like a lot of other people, like, do it a couple of times, do nationals a couple of times, but you just went like hammer and tong and just like picked it all up.
I think it's the Capricorn in me. I was like, I'm going to do this and I'm going to do this once and I'm going to make it and as the best thing I can possibly do. No, I felt in retrospect, looking back now after like judging all these years and kind of being a part of the program for as long as I have, I think back and I'm like, thank fuck. I only had to do that once. I don't know how I survived it. And I don't know if I was to have to go back and do it again, if I would survive it all over again. So yeah, I was in the one and done club and I feel very like blessed to be a part of that club. But at the same time, it was such a fun experience. So I don't know, it would have been cool to like, tackle some of the other challenges and, meet even more people across Canada and different bartenders. I just get to do that in a different aspect now. And it's really fun. So I love it. It was great. Great experience.
Yeah. Do you love the World Class program? Like I talked to Michael and John about it a lot. Like Canada has dominated World Class Globals over the last 7 years.
Yeah. I mean, I don't even think it's just World Class though. Like Canadians have been doing exceptionally well in like international, like global competitions. Like Elise just had recently won for Bombay's Most Imaginative on the global scale. You've got like Dylan, I think he won for Hennessy My Way or something. Like, there's like a bunch of people that have done really exceptionally well on the global stage and they all happen to be Canadian. So like, I mean, yes, obviously we have now 4 global winners for the World Class program, which is incredible. And it's kind of led to this like, you can't really ignore us now. We're here. We're not going anywhere. And I mean, for World Class in specific, I mean, you've seen it. You've been a part of it. It's when we say it's like a big family, like it truly is like this family environment of like, we want to uplift people. We want to see people succeed, and we want to give them the tools to do that. And we've kind of found this formula of like, this is how we tackle it. this is how we read a challenge. This is how we prepare for a challenge. This is how we squeeze the most points possible out of said challenge. You know, so yeah, I love being a part of it because it's kind of watching this machine kind of roll on it's been pretty incredible to be a part of it since, you know, the beginning of it. It's wild.
With you traveling globally now, are people like starting to pay attention more to Canada? Like, I've traveled a lot, and obviously I've been doing this for a really long time, and it's always sort of been like Canada's not necessarily been an afterthought, but it's also always been like a, well, we're here and we're doing well. But do you find now going globally that people are like, what are you guys putting in the water? Like when it comes to competitions, when it comes to like Cali doing World's Best 50, all these
Yep.
sort of things.
Yeah, I mean, you definitely have a lot of people who have like who recognize, but I mean, it is difficult though. Like as you know, even being in a smaller portion of like, you know, BC, off the offshoot of Vancouver, like people don't understand like how big Canada actually truly
Mm,
is. Our population isn't wild, but like we're a very big country from coast to coast. Like Keegan was just flying from Halifax to Vancouver to do our seminars today in Victoria tomorrow. And it's, you know, it's going to take him better part of like 15 hours with
yeah,
like having to stop and, you know, wait for the next flight and all that. And I don't think people realize that. Whereas like, you know, you take advantage of that when you're in Europe and you can kind of hop around from like, you know, major city to major city. But I mean, we're still not cracking the 50 best lists. We're still not cracking these like big international recognized like, you know, lists. I mean, not that they're everything, but it would be amazing to see a Canadian bar, you know, get there. Bar Pompette was like number 70 or in the
hmm
70s, which is
yeah.
absolutely unreal. But like the caliber and the talent and just like the amazing hospitality that Canada has to offer, I would love to see that represented even more on that big international platform, not just through competitions, but through,
Mm.
you know, all the hard work of everybody, you know, making great cocktails at great establishments. But it doesn't hurt. It definitely helps having people, you know, uplift it and, you know, win comps and do all that and get great scholarship opportunities. But I really wish it was more.
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
love this country so much.
it's one of those things like when even people who are visiting like Vancouver, they're like, "Oh, we'd love to come see you." And I'm like, "How would you like to come see me?" And they're like, "Well, how long does it take?" Well, if you don't fly, it's going to take you about 6 hours total to get from Vancouver to downtown Victoria
Yeah.
on the ferry. And if you fly, it could take half an hour. But those things get like right now, I think with the big storm we've got today, they're canceling ferries and they're canceling flights, like
Yeah,
harbor
I
to
know.
harbor
I'm like,
flights.
we're supposed to fly Harbor Air tomorrow morning, and I'm like, I'm not sure
Yeah,
that's gonna happen, but we'll see.
yeah. I'm literally waiting for a text message from my guys today going, yeah, we can't make it today. So,
Yeah.
but really what I wanted to chat to you about, and obviously you've made a massive impact on this is obviously social media. And I think pre-pandemic, it definitely wasn't something that was there's a couple of bartenders doing good things, but it wasn't as impactful as it is now. Like the explosion of like TikTok bartending, whether they're professional bartenders that are just try to find an outlet during the pandemic, or at home bartenders like Thirsty Whale, who have just like blown up and become these sort of standbys. What got you into like was it something that you were just sort of testing the waters and trying, or was it something that you actually planned out? Like when the pandemic hit, was it like, I'm gonna give this a go and see what happens?
No, I mean, it definitely wasn't like on my vision board of, you know, the milestones that I wanted to like reach within kind of like this bartending landscape that, you know, I've been a part of for almost 20 years now. But it was kind of one of those things where, I mean, like all of us, we kind of had to roll with the punches. My bar restaurant, Royal Danette, we closed down and we never opened back up. We were in the financial district. Like it still is a little like, you know, a bit of a ghost town at times down in
Hmm
that area. And it was really truly, I had regulars reaching out to me being like, oh, I miss sitting at your bar. I really want to make that one drink that you do. You know, can you give me the recipe so I can try to make it at home? You know, how do you make the best old fashioned? Like what's a, you know, a good trick to making a good margarita, like whatever. I would get these questions from people that used to just sit at my bar and ask me them in person. And so I used to like send them, you know, messages back and forth. And then I was like, you know, I should probably just like, I see people do this all the time online, like just making videos. Like, why couldn't I just like make a video tutorial and figure it out? And now when I look back at those like very first videos, I was posting more so on YouTube. I'm like, oh God, like yeah, this is so cringe. I can't. And then I started seeing people posting like short form content, and it was TikTok more so than Reels, because Reels didn't exist yet. It was like, you know, IGTV or something, and it just, you know,
Mm.
it wasn't picking up steam yet. And so I was like, okay, I'll join this platform. It was actually Will from Search and Rescue Denim. He was like, you should join TikTok. And I was like, Will, I don't dance. Like, I'm not dancing on camera. I'm not lip syncing. Like, what are you talking about? He's like, no, no, no. He's like, a lot of like tattoo artists and barbers who I make aprons from, they're like getting crazy views, and, you know, because they're just showing what they do. I'm like, okay. So I like joined, and I was like, all right, here we go. And even so, I look back at like the first few TikToks and I'm like, ugh, like, I don't know about this. And then, you know, started to find a rhythm and figure out what people were wanting to see. Had a couple of good breaks with like, you know, some videos going viral, and obviously that brings more attention and more people. And yeah, so it kind of just started from there as like a way to communicate with my regulars that I didn't get to see in person. I mean, you know, we both of us have been in this you know, profession for as long as we have because we love hospitality. And so for me, I was like, this is kind of just like a new form of hospitality,
Mm.
a way to welcome somebody in, a way to like offer up some advice, to like listen to people's questions and answer them. What I was doing at the bar, but now I'm just at home, you know, with my cats and my dog and making cocktails on a video versus in person. So yeah, it was just kind of this natural progression, which now here I am like 3 years later still doing it. So clearly I've found some sort of like groove that I've been sticking with.
Yeah, it has evolved a lot. Like I talked to a couple of bartenders now, and I'm like, 3 years ago, you can only do 1 minute long videos.
Mm-hmm.
So that was my shtick the whole time, and we talked about it back in the day. Like it was my whole shtick, and it's like one cocktail, one take, no editing.
Yeah.
I'm not going to edit. I'm like going to try
Yep.
and nail out a Ramos Gin Fizz in a minute. Like do
Yeah.
something just crazy.
Yeah.
So
And
when you
that's
look
like
back,
that's the fun of it though, right? That's the fun of
yeah.
it.
So when you look back now, what sort of drives you to continue it on? Because the one thing that we don't have in Canada is necessarily the monetization that they do in the US. And I know
Yeah.
we've messaged a few times about this. Is like the viewership's great, but Canada's still not on the monetization side of things with TikTok. What kept driving you to keep doing the content bit by bit? Because early on, obviously, you didn't look at it as a sort of business slash
Mhm.
sort of career direction. It was just a bit of fun. What sort of changed that sort of mindset for you?
Yeah. I mean, yeah, it's weird because it's like I feel like I'm in this like weird limbo between this like online world, but I also have like an everyday like job in like this industry to a certain extent. So like there's this weird dichotomy of like this, what I do on socials is not my full-time job, but as you know, it takes a lot of like hours out of your day and a lot of time and effort. So like when I'm putting out videos, and I love it. I continue to do it because I genuinely love it. And I genuinely love seeing people recreate the drinks and give them inspiration. And I get private messages where it's like, hey, like you gave me the courage to go for that job, or I entered my first competition, or I tried this at home for my friends and they loved it. And like, I love, like, that's what I love about it. But yeah, I mean, like this last like month and a half has been super busy with travel and work for like my actual job. So I haven't been able to like get in my bar here and make those videos and put them out. And I feel bad, but at the same time, I'm like, but I don't get paid for that. So I shouldn't feel bad about like not doing something that I'm not regularly getting a paycheck
Mm.
for to pay my rent, when I actually have to do this other job over here that is paying me, and I need to give that my full attention. So again, there's like this weird balance between it, but I keep doing it because it's opened up opportunities. Like it's led me to getting a book deal. It led me to, you know, travel and meet other people that are in the industry in a completely different capacity. So it's this hope that I could potentially one day make it my full-time job. But I do it because I genuinely love it, and I love seeing people get excited about cocktails and this industry that we love so much. So it's purely for that reason. Yeah.
How do you balance it off? Like when you were saying you're traveling a lot with for your real job, do you like schedule? Like I'm trying to because you do love it and it's so much fun. How do you schedule it so it's still fun, but you're like, I really got to get up today. I really got to like nail out like 3 solid videos, 4 videos because I'm away for the next week and a half.
Yeah. Yeah, some weeks are better than others in terms of like my planning. I can like if I know that I'm going to be away for X amount of days in a row and I won't be able to like put together something, easy to put up online, then I'll be like, okay, I've got the weekend, I've got Saturday and Sunday. Let's just, get 7 or 8 videos in the bank, and then when I'm traveling, when I'm on an airplane, I'll start editing them there, so I give myself that opportunity to do it. But again, some weeks, some months are better than others with that. And again, it's like one of those things where I kind of have to like listen to myself and be like, am I like overdoing it right now? Like, is this super important? Do I really need to like lean into this? But at the same time, like, no, I really want to because I enjoy it and there's opportunity, and people want to see it, and so I want to give the people what they want. But yeah, it's definitely a bit of a balance, and I kind of have to like check in every once in a while and talk to myself like it's okay to take a break. You don't have to be like posting 5 days a week like I was for 2 years straight. But yeah, it's okay to like have a little bit of pushback, and that's what stories are for. You just post on stories and say like I'm still here. I'm traveling around, but just don't have time right now, I'm sorry.
So outside looking in, like, do you still do everything yourself? Do you still edit everything yourself and do that? Was editing something you need to teach yourself as well? Because your videos are very polished, like they're very, very polished. I don't think I have the patience
Yeah.
for that per se.
I
Um,
mean, yeah, it's kind of like an ongoing process. Like I appreciate you saying that they look polished, because in my eyes, I'm like, oh, like these are so basic. These are so like, you know, uh, I, anybody could do this right now. Like there's nothing special about this, but that's just me being my own worst like critic. And again, it's like comparison is a thief of joy. And you like look at other
mm.
people's videos and you're like, wow, that's incredible. Like, I wonder what camera you're using. I'm like, I'm still using my iPhone, and I'm still using my like basic InShot editing tool. I have like one light that I rely heavily on because being in Vancouver, like some days it's sunny, other days it's gray as fuck, and and it's just not helping with consistency. So yeah, I know I do everything myself, and I enjoy it. But yeah, I mean, it would be great if I could, it would be a lot easier if I just banged out like a bunch of videos and shipped them off to somebody and been like, hey, can you just edit these for me? This is the style that I like. But I am a bit of a control freak that way. So I'm like, oh, but then I have to like give up some of that responsibility. What if it's not what I want? But no, I would love to be able to kind of like improve the quality and try different things. I just like there's not enough hours in the day to like take that on and like learn a new skill, like learn new camera functionings, learn how to
Mm.
color grade properly. I just like literally just do not have enough hours in the day to be able to do it. So one of these days I will.
You
One
need
of
an
them.
intern. That's what you need. You need an intern. Um, Talking about that, like that's a good little segue into a lot of people I find anyway, like because I live by a rule that quality is subjective. That's there's things
Yeah.
that I put out that I'm like, personally, they're a little bit grainy or they're an old photo or something, and they'll just blow up and they'll get good traction. And
Yeah.
I'm just like, and then other things I put so much effort into, and I'm like, and then it just falls short.
Lops. Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm just like, okay, so I live by a rule that quality is subjective, but I find a lot of young bartenders who want to get into like doing cocktail videos and stuff like that. They get caught up in trying to be perfect.
Yeah.
What's your sort of advice when, like you said, like you were like looking at, what's your sort of advice to young bartenders who, or young people, anyone who wants to get into social media in general, when it comes to quality is subjective?
Yeah, I mean, again, like you never know what's going to take off and what's going to resonate with people. So like just post the video. You know what I mean? Like you can always change and adapt, but you got to start somewhere. So if you're giving yourself the excuse of, oh, I don't want to post yet because I want it to be like 100% perfect and just da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. It's like, well, that's great, but at the same time, like just post the video. Like get yourself out there, get yourself used to connecting with people. I mean, as much as I want to like change the style of my videos and stuff. A lot of times though, I get messages from people if I see people out who come up to like pop-ups and stuff, and they're like, I really love how authentic you are, and I love that I feel like I can do what you do because you're really down to earth in your videos and you don't make it look like too fancy. And I'm like,
Mm.
that's great. So like what I'm doing is working for me and for like my target audience. So you don't want to just be a carbon copy of somebody else, because then you just fade into the background. So why not do you be authentic and let that evolve from there? You know, I think a really good example of that is Chris from Not Just a Bartender.
Mm.
Like when he first started posting videos on TikTok, they were just basic review videos on his phone, and he was sitting in the restaurant that he was managing at the time, and it was just like the split screen side by side of reviewing somebody making a cocktail. And then once he started to gain some, traction and people started to follow him, he started to make like videos in his kitchen, and then you can see that the production value has just like gone up and up and up
Mm-hmm.
with like, lighting, style, cameras, but again, he started by just with his phone doing this, and he found something that he wanted to get into. So yeah, I mean, again, so it's kind of one of those things where you're like, everybody's got to start somewhere, so start.
Mm. So when it comes to trends, because you have a very specific style that you like, and that's your style of videos. Your authenticity obviously comes through a lot. I find that's also another big holdup that a lot of people have. They try. I was just reading an article today about the authentic gap where people
Mm,
see themselves, who they really are, and how they perceive themselves. And tell people that everybody's got a million perceptions about you, because every single person you cross every single day has a different perception about you.
mm-hmm.
When it comes to trends on the platforms, do you watch out for trends, or do you sort of stick almost blinders on like what your sort of goal is?
Yeah, I mean, it's a little bit different in the drinks world, because I mean, I'm not doing a trend because it's like a trending audio or sound bite
Mm.
or something like that. I mean, if it fits for the occasion and it works, then sure. Like I'm not against it. I'm not above it. But like certain drink trends, like, yeah, I mean, we all kind of jumped on the bandwagon of like trying to make the Batanga super trendy. So it was like, let's all post a Batanga video. But like it was really funny. We should almost do like a case study on that, because the amount of people who like maybe follow me and like one or two other people, or vice versa, and we were all posting the same video, everybody's like, this is sponsored, this is sponsored, why aren't you saying that this isn't sponsored? Big Coca-Cola is sponsoring you guys, or this tequila brand. And we're all like, no, this is genuinely not sponsored. We all just got together on like a group chat and was like, wouldn't this be hilarious if we decided that the Batanga was the drink of 2024? And so we just all like, we're like, okay, who's posting today? We like, I am. And the next person, who's posting? I am. And it was just funny because people were like, it caught on. And it was like, who posted it? It was like Food and Wine posted as the drink of this. And then like Martha Stewart posted it. Like, you know what I mean? And then you have all these other people where it's like, oh, this is really the power of that quote unquote influence that they
Mm.
talk about, right? Because we just all got together as a joke, as like a joke, being like, this would be hilarious to do. And it kind of worked. So yeah, I mean, trends are kind of like, one of those things, they go up and down. You never know where they come from. So I try to stick with, what I do. But if I have enough people bugging me, in my DMs being like, oh, have you seen this? Have you seen this? Can you do this? Can you do this? Then sure, I got to give the people what they want, because it's not for me. Like, I don't do this for me. I do
Mm.
it for the people watching. So if that's what they want, then that's what they're going to get. So yeah, I kind of yes and no with the trends. There are variables.
Have you been surprised a little bit, especially about influencer marketing in the US, when you've been, because I know there was a big influencer marketing push during Tales of the Cocktail, because you were a big part of the influencers there, like Lucas and that sort of thing. Have you been surprised when you sort of, not that it gets demonized, but like influencer marketing has sort of this weird sort of thing about the beverage industry? Have you been surprised when you go to the US and just how heavily a lot of brands are putting money into influence marketing?
Yeah, I mean, yes and no. So before I got on to like socials, and like you said, there was only maybe like a handful of people who were making drinks content, right? You had like Elliot from Apartment Bartender, you had Natalie at Beautiful Booze, you had like a decent amount of people, but like still people that were like, you were in the online space and the online space only.
Mm.
And now you see it kind of shifting, and it's like, oh, a lot of these like online space people are now kind of shifting into like the bar world that we've loved and known for
Hmm.
like ages. Like that's what I said earlier, I kind of feel like I'm caught in the middle of like, yes, I have this online persona, but I'm also like still kind of involved in the bar world. So I kind of go
Mm.
back and I can play both sides. But now seeing like a lot of people spending their budgets on influence marketing, it's like, well, yeah, it's not a bad thing. Like, I love working in bars, but like our brand ambassadors and those people, like at the end of the day, they've got to sell cases. And the people that are like helping sell their product are actually like these influencer type people. So like because they've got, 200,000, 400,000, 600,000 people that are like watching their videos. And if you have like Lucas, saying like, oh, I love Cascanas tequila, people are like, I saw that Lucas liked Cascanas tequila, so I'm going to go out and buy Cascanas tequila. You know what I mean? Not so much like, oh, my favorite bartender down the street made me a margarita with Cascanas tequila, so I want to buy Cascanas tequila. Like, you know what I mean? So it's like, of course, there's going to be this shift of like brands wanting to kind of bring that side in and vice versa. It's great. Like Natalie does those bar crawls where she'll like go to New York and she's like, these are my favorite bars in New York. And it's great because it marries those two worlds together to get like our everyday people, our audience. I would say like 80% of the people that follow me have never worked a day in their life behind a bar. They don't know about lists. They don't know about all these things. They just like they will Google search like best bars in Victoria, right? And whatever comes up on that list, if you're not like one of the first sponsored, Google searches on, paid for sponsorships on Google, then they might not be coming to your bar. So I think it's a great kind of crossover, and it's necessary to a certain extent.
Have you started delving into the business side of things of social media and started to think about how to talk about that and like give sessions on it? Like people coming to you and going, hey, a brand comes to you and go, I want to do this. And then you have the sort of metrics and the knowledge and that sort of thing. Have you been sort of turning that into a business as well?
I mean, yes and no. I'm too I got too many other things on the go at the moment to be able to really dive into that. But it is interesting. I was actually thinking the other day, I was like, I think, I'd love to submit for like a tails seminar this year, kind of like on that topic of like basically like under the influence and like how we can bridge that gap a little bit better, and how brands and online marketing and being in like a bar space, that marketing, how we can kind of like bring that a little bit closer together to see everybody benefit. But yeah, I mean, it's an interesting world that way too, because I feel like a lot of brands and companies, because they go through like a third party, so it's a PR firm that's coming to you asking about stuff. You're not getting it direct from the brand. And then there's all these like parameters. It's like you have to say the project within the first 3 seconds. You have to always show like it's you've been there where it's like, okay, I get it, but what would be better if I did this authentically and you trusted me, instead of my audience being like, ugh, now they're sponsored. Because for whatever reason, as soon as somebody sees the paid for sponsorship toggle, they're like, swipe pass. And I'm like, oh, which is a bummer, because it's like, that's the only way I actually make money on this app. And, I would like to, if I can make, something out of this and not everything's coming out of pocket, I would love and support. But yeah, it's an interesting subject, because I think everybody's kind of does it a little bit differently.
Have you seen now, because I posted it a couple of weeks ago, maybe it's longer than that, a couple of months ago, how that the app, especially TikTok, has aged up now, and liquor brands can actually start doing sponsored products. Have you seen an influx for yourself or in
I
your
haven't
like circle?
Yeah, I haven't personally. But again, like being Canadian is a little bit different. I I do get some sponsorships, obviously, and paid for stuff like through American brands and American companies. But a lot of times too, I'll get like reached out to, and because I can't get their product in my country, and you know how it is, getting alcohol shipped across the border is a nightmare in itself, and you end up having to pay like so much duty on it that it doesn't really make it worth it. That can get a little bit frustrating. So being like the token Canadian, I'm like, wish I could do that promotion over there, but unfortunately I can't. So yeah, it's kind of skewed that way. It's a little bit different between like the US and Canada, but I haven't really seen like a big uptick on it yet. But it will be interesting to see once that kind of like comes into play, if it really changes things or not. But
Yeah. I'm launching a new cognac project, and it's all about cognac reviews and tasting videos and stuff like that. And I'm looking at stuff that's even available in Alberta and Ontario and Quebec, and I'm just like, man, I can't even. That's going to be a pain in the ass to get to
yeah,
be, let
yeah,
alone the crazy stuff I see on Facebook groups of cognac tasters and some of the stuff they taste in Europe.
yep.
It's mental.
I know. I always see the tequila, oh the agaves, and I'm like, oh.
Exactly.
I was like, please.
Some of the stuff that Lucas pulls out, I'm like, dude, come on, you're just showing off now.
But even the prices, right? It's like the
Oh,
prices. People are like, oh, why are you using that tequila to make that drink? Because I'm like, because it's the only one I can afford off the
yeah,
shelf to be able to make a shitty margarita. Like, you know what I mean? Like
yeah,
this bottle was still $80.
yeah.
Like,
I've had that happen a couple of times.
yeah.
You've done a couple of videos, and I've always been able to handle negativity online very empathetically because I live by a rule like you've come into my house and you're dropping shitty comments in my space. Like I'm going to call you out for being a dick. You've done the same sort of thing. How do you deal with negativity on social media? Because I think that's always a big deterrent for a lot of younger bartenders because they don't want to be judged. How do you deal with that sort of negativity when it comes to videos and stuff like that?
It's, like it depends on the day of the week and my mood because I really try to ignore it because truly like, they're usually faceless names, in a comment section and it really doesn't matter. But like at the same time too, I think also being like a female in this space
Mm,
for me and it's like a point of pride where I'm like, are you like saying that comment? Are you telling me I'm doing something wrong? Like simply for the fact because like I'm a female making you that old fashioned,
mm,
like would you be saying the same comment to like your to you, like I don't know, like it's so for me sometimes it's like every once in a while like my snarky side will come out and I'll be like you don't think I know what I'm talking about? I actually spend my entire life like learning about this stuff, like the better part of my life, and I've dedicated so much time and resources and I'm making this for free. If you don't
mm.
agree, that's totally fine. You can swipe away. Like I am not forcing you to be here. I'm not forcing you to sit here and watch this video. But thank you for the engagement and
Yeah,
move along.
yeah.
Like I'll go back and forth with you in the comments just because it makes you watch this video
Mhm.
another like 3 or 4 times. Great. But no, it's like it's so funny when people have like such strong opinions where I'm like, you know this app is free, right? Like you know that you can just like hit next or like block or like whatever. Like
Yeah,
it's we're literally pouring liquid into a glass. I'm not curing cancer.
yeah.
Like, so yeah, when people get really like uptight about it, I'm just like, do you need a hug? Like
Just cocktails,
breathe.
man.
Like truly, like it's it's
Yeah,
it's not that
I
heavy.
always I always do the thanks for your time, thanks for your comment. I do, and I always go to their profile,
Yeah.
and I'm like, I love your cocktail videos too, man. Thanks.
Yeah,
And
right?
then they come back and
Exactly.
like, I don't do cocktail videos. I'm like, exactly. Shut the fuck up.
I might have to steal that one.
So, as you mentioned, you've got a book deal coming.
Mm.
Um, Obviously, every bartender wants to write a book. Every bartender, I think, that's been in the game long enough, they eventually want to write a book. How did that sort of come about, and were you surprised when it did? Did you go out scouting, or did it come to you?
So I have, I've been wanting to write a book for a long time. Like you said, like, every bartender out there has these aspirations of like, oh, that'd be really cool one day. I've got, shelves of books from like people that I consider friends, which is like really cool. But yeah, I was like, oh, I have this. I already had an idea. And I actually had a couple years, prior to the pandemic, had reached out to a couple of people that I know who are authors who I've done recipes for in their books. And I just kind of
Mm,
asked like, hey, like, how did you go about doing this? Like, would you, if you had to do it all over again, would you self-publish versus like go with a publishing house, like yada yada yada. Anyways, got some advice and kind of got deterred a little bit because I was like, okay, I'm not quite ready yet to like do that all on my own. And then yeah, no, building out likable cocktails and creating this platform and stuff, I actually was approached by a book agent who was like, hey, like, I'm a book agent, have you ever considered writing a book? I think like what you have to offer would translate really well in a book. And I kind of messaged back and I was like, hey, to say like, yeah, have had an idea and I've been wanting to do it. And I've, it's been on my mind. So like, let's take that meeting. And so, I took a meeting with this book agent and she kind of was like, like, what do you want to write about? And I was told her my idea, and she's like, I love that idea, great, and helped me put together my proposal, helped put me to get put together like, like a package basically, so that she then shopped around and sent out to a bunch of the publishing houses. And it was kind of like one of those things where I'm like, another reason why this platform and why I wanted to continue it is because, sure, I probably could have done that like if I was not on socials, but now I have this massive target audience that I can like sell it to in a way, that have been on this journey with me, who have always said like, you need to write a book, you need to write a book, do you have a book? Like, I'd buy your book if you had one, like, instantly. So like, it's again like being in my like bar world, like, I'm not writing this book for like my bartending friends who already like have this little knowledge. I'm writing this book for the people that come and sit at our bars, to give them a better appreciation of like what we do for a living and how much effort and work it takes, but that they can do that for themselves at home too. So yeah, it got shopped around, it got picked up, and it was incredible. It was one of those like kind of dream moments of like, holy crap, this is actually happening. Like, wow. I love it.
So it comes out in October next year?
Yeah, October. So it's being like kind of like double published. It's a 10-speed press in the States and Penguin Random House in Canada. And we're like right in the thick of like the actual design of it right now. So like the fonts and colors and, page layouts. But yeah, it's quite the process. Like, I started this process like over a year ago. And so by the time it comes out, it'll be like a 2.5-year process from, shopping around this idea to getting it picked up to getting it published. It's a labor of love, as I would say.
Is it going to be sort of based around all your sort of cocktail styles and what you sort of do on the show?
Yeah, kind of. Like, I mean, I've always had this idea of making like a really inclusive book for kind of like all types of drinkers, like even the non-drinker. So it's kind of loosely based around every page starts with a classic cocktail. And then from a classic cocktail is my variation of the classic cocktail. And then from that classic cocktail is also a completely non-alcoholic version of the classic cocktail. So if you're like craving a Negroni, you can flip to the Negroni page and be like, ooh, am I feeling classic today? Or do I want to go with something a little bit different? Then maybe you went with my version. Or if you're like, oh, I'm not drinking this month, I'm taking the month off, but I do want something still that tastes like a Navy grog. Okay, let's flip to the Navy grog page and I'll make the non-alcoholic version of it. So kind of having this, like, there's a recipe for everybody and every recipe is equal and, takes effort and time, and there you have it. It's all together. It's not just, here's just your non-alcoholic book and here's just your classic book. Here's your everything.
That's very cool. That's one thing that I try and, whenever young bartenders, and tends to be younger bartenders, sort of get not on their high horse, they get a little bit caught up in cocktail world. And I try and explain to them just how much of a niche we live in. Like, we live in a very, very small niche. And I say, go to the liquor store and just hang out at the liquor store for a little bit and watch what people buy.
Yeah.
And it's a very humbling experience to go and see what the general consumer is, because it's nice to think that we're making a massive impact at our bars, like making cocktails, and we're busy and we're making money, all these sort of things. But really, in the grand scheme of things, it's still only a very, very small slither of the general population. But then when you've taken over with the social media side of things, you get exposed to the other 80% or 85% of people who have never been to a cocktail bar, find them really intimidating. Has it been surprising for you to sort of see that side? Because we do get caught up in ourselves, like we're developing cocktails, or R&D, and we're reading Punch, or doing all these sort of things, and then you don't sort of remember that there's 85% of the clientele who go to their local only every week.
Yeah, you know what? Like, I think I've tried to stay hyper aware of that through almost like the majority of my bartending career, especially now, like being, consulting and writing cocktail menus for different places and people. And when somebody comes to me and they're like, hey, we want to do something really wild and crazy and out there, I was like, cool. What is your definition of wild and crazy out there? Because it could be completely different than mine, but also like, what's your demographic? And, I'm working on a project for the Edmonton airport right now. And I'm like, okay, there's going to be so many different walks of life that come through these doors. I'm not going to like put a rotovap in the back and have like, some crazy like distillate, because that's probably not going to be worth it. But there are other things that I can do and different ways that I can like word things on menus that will make it a little bit more palatable for the average person who comes in, who's like, I don't know what half of these words are. versus like, oh, like I understand what a Paloma is, or I understand what, like a spritz is. So I recognize those words, so I'll go with that. So yeah, you kind of have to like I said, I've always kind of been aware of like how I approach things, and even with like my videos and stuff, I could go a lot crazier. Like I could, I have a spinzall. I could bust out the spinzall and start doing some wild and crazy stuff. But I know my target audience, and I know what they want, and I want them to be able to replicate the things that I do. So I try not to have too many homemade ingredients. But then again, like you can do something really weird and wild and crazy and think that like when I started posting about milk liqueur, I was like, there's no way in hell anybody's going to make this. And now it's like one of the most popular posts that I put out there, and people are making milk liqueur at home. And I'm like, this is but amazing. And I love it. So yeah, it's, you kind of have to like know your target audience and know your demographic, and don't be too big for your britches, because you don't want to alienate people, and you want to, make people feel welcome. And being approachable is not making things any less interesting. It just helps with getting their foot in the door, like gain their trust. It's all about gaining trust with, like, if somebody's sitting at your bar and they're like, ask for a dealer's choice, and you ask them a couple of questions, and they're like, hey, you're normally an old fashioned drinker. Well, have you ever tried a Sazerac? Or, and it's just like those baby steps of like getting people kind of comfortable with what we do. It really helps.
I know you're a busy person. So what's the plan for the next 6 to 12 months? Have you got any like sort of KPIs you've got in the next 6 to 12 months?
KPIs, that's great. I don't even have a KPI for like the next week. No, I mean, I'm just looking forward to traveling more, just getting some more lived experiences. And I don't know. I love how this year went. I got to do a ton of traveling with like my work side, but also with like social side, which was really cool. And some of those things kind of like cross paths. But like this next year is going to be epic, because we're hosting the World Class Global Finals in Toronto. So I've kind of like raised my hand and said, I will help in any capacity. I think it's really cool that we're going to have such amazing people in our country and in the city of Toronto, and it's going to be absolutely epic and massive. So that's going to, take up a lot of time for like the planning and prep of that. And it's just exciting. And yeah, so I mean, this book is, I've written the book, it's done, but now it's like putting it together and, hopefully be able to do some kind of like touring with it and get it out there in people's hands and continue making videos. I would love to do some more collaborations, whether that's with other creators or bartenders. And just kind of get people excited about drinks, and get them learning.
So we're at the stage I ask the same 5 questions to every guest. They're the deep questions of the podcast. I like them, and I never give. If some of them, can I see them before you ask them? I'm like, no, I like to go by the seat of my pants. What is the one lesson or experience that has shaped your perspective the most, and how do you carry that forward in life?
Oh, like in the bar industry or in general?
In general.
In general, one experience that has kind of shaped my life. You know what? It's not so much an experience, but it's kind of like an attitude. My dad always, like ever since I was a kid, he would always say to both me and my sister, like, remember who you are and what you represent. And so that's kind of always like in the back of my mind of who am I and what am I representing? And that is just kind of carried me through like every little situation of like choices of jobs that I've taken, choices of like people I'm spending time with. But it's always there. It's always like, remember who you are and what you represent. And that's kind of like changed my attitude about lots of different things. So not so much a situation, but just wise words to live by.
If you could leave one lasting message or piece of wisdom for the world, what would it be and why? Told you.
Yeah, honestly, like authenticity will get you, like authenticity is the key to success. Don't try to mimic anybody else or anybody else's style or what they do. Be authentically you, and it'll get you a lot further in life than you think.
Looking back on your journey, what is something you wish you had understood earlier in life?
Oh, the power of saying no. I I still am, and I'm still learning this, but I feel like I have to say yes, 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 yes to everything, or I'll be forgotten and I'll,
Mm.
miss out on opportunities. But there's a lot of power in saying no and setting boundaries. And, you'll quickly realize that it's okay to say no. Those opportunities will come back tenfold. Might be in another way, another shape or form, but it's it's okay to say no.
How do you find success, and has your definition changed over time?
Ooh, success is like it's so many things. I don't think there's one definition of success. Success to me is like, you know, waking up, having a good night's sleep, getting up in the morning, getting everything that I said I needed to get done that day, and having a nice meal at home with the family. Like that to me is success. So the measurement of it is kind of all over the place. But I think you're most successful when you're happy. So happiness is always key.
What do you hope your legacy will be, and what steps are you taking to build it?
Ooh, I hope my legacy is just to like I said, be like authentic and not give a flying fuck what other people think about you. And to like, I don't know, be happy, be like, have a smile on your face. Like I said, especially in this industry that we've been in, it doesn't have to be so serious, like drink the rum and coke, make that cocktail blue, have some fun with it, and just be genuine.
Nice. Well, I want to say thank you so much for your time. I hope that everybody that's listening gets a little bit of an insight into like the social media side of things. So I think sometimes social media thing is always outside looking in, and it can look very different to what it is actually real like doing that sort of thing.
Definitely. And also too, like I'm still growing and learning on that too. I don't think you ever stop kind of learning learning about different things. So ah,
So thanks so much for your time, Kate. I really appreciate it. And I'm
of
going to see
course.
you in like less than 24 hours.
Exactly.
Like,
It's gonna be exciting. Thanks for
have a
having
good,
me, Shawn.
no, thank you so much. Have a good day. Okay, bye. Thanks for listening, Pose Shifters. Well, I hope you enjoyed that episode. I really enjoy sitting down with friends and peers and just chatting about the industry and getting down to the nuts and bolts of what's really going on out there. Make sure you like, subscribe, comment, everything on all the platforms. Just hit it up and I'll do my best to answer any queries or questions you have. I'll see you next week, guys. Bye.